right. Now it looks the same. It looks the same on my screen. Oh, okay. Yep, we're there. Okay, great. We're on YouTube now. There's a slight delay, letting you all know that.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll wait for people to come in. And to be honest, I don't even know if I'll know how. I think I'll know when people are in. Hold up. Yes, I'll know when people are in. I hope so. But we'll wait a few minutes and let people come in, and then we'll start.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we can just still keep talking and keep keying while we're here. Let people come into the party, you know. And Ashanti, you look good. I'm looking at you on my TV, and your lighting is good.
Okay, good. Yeah, you should see this concoction of lamps in front of you right
now. It has worked. It has worked.
It took me a moment. I was like, oh, we're 2 hours behind. I was like, today is the day. Yeah, they were just getting back. We go to market and it just kind of takes all day. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go. I think I need to stay close because I got to actually start getting ready at like 2:33. Yeah, so I can be here on time.
Do you like going to market every day?
Well, we only go once a week on Fridays. I do like it. Yeah, it gives us a chance because we're down at where the locals, like I can get all my produce for like $8.
So nice.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
I told them at work, I was like, out. I gotta go.
Good for you. Because we know you can be a workaholic, so that's great. Yeah.
Like I got stuff to do. Deuces.
They're like, oh, where are you going? You gotta hide. I was like, it's Friday.
You didn't give them your little you didn't tell them you were going live at 6?
I told you and one of my other. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, it says 2 people are watching. The 2 people who are watching right now, thank you so much for being here. We're gonna wait a few minutes till more people come in. But we won't wait too long. We're admiring Piper's sunny wonderfulness in Costa Rica right now.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'm admiring the view of the Pacific.
Are you right on the water?
No, I'm actually on the side of a mountain that faces the Pacific on an 8-acre farm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's wonderful.
I'll send you some pictures, Mikaila.
That'd be great. I would love that. Hi to those who just joined, just letting you know we are waiting a couple minutes just to let a few more people come in and then we're going to start. But thank you so much for showing up and for being here. So excited to do this very first live. I forgot to tell you all in the back room. I'm going to do a really quick intro just to anchor the space and then I'll turn it over, okay?
Okay. I might mute myself just for if they turn on this truck. They're going to be leaving, and so it might get loud. I'll just mute for a moment.
Okay. Do you have a car out there, Piper?
Not yet. We will get one, but not yet. We probably won't have one before June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you're kind of settling in.
We're settling in. We're going to leave here April 6th. We're going to make our way over to the Caribbean side.
Okay.
We need to find a place to stay for 2 months, but we have it's like a week to find that, which would be, we're not going to have any trouble with that. And then come June, we have a home that we're going to rent until October, November.
Amazing. Amazing.
It's a really nice house. So we're really lucky. Thanks to Lystra and her brother, Mom.
I knew I was hopeful she'd be able to help. That's great.
Yeah, her brother Brian has been amazing.
You've met him?
Only via WhatsApp. Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to start on time just because for those who did join, I want to honor that they came on time and people will just trickle in when it's time. Okay, wonderful. So hello, everyone. Hello. Happy Women's History Month. Happy belated Black History Month. Happy that Mikaila figured out how to do her very first live, because there were times this week that I wasn't sure I was going to pull it off, but we are here. You are here. For those of you who don't know, my name is Mikaila Brown, and I am the host of the podcast, Mikaila Unmuted. And this particular season is called Beyond A Mammy, Mule, and Maid. We focus on the stories of Black women, the ones that we've inherited, the stories that we've made for ourselves that haven't been platformed, have been very misunderstood, and also the ones that are shaped by society, history, other people. The three women who are here with me today were my guests on the very first episode, where we talked about matrilineal healing. We looked at 3 generations of one family, and we looked at what patterns were passed down, but also how they evolved and changed and shifted with each person. So we have Dr. Yvonne, who is the matriarch of the family, her daughter Piper, and then Piper's daughter Ashanti. I am so excited that we're able to take this conversation from the podcast and bring it into the real world. So if you are here, you are so invited to use the comment section to ask questions, share your thoughts, your feelings. We want to hear it all. Like I said to the ladies backstage, this is a safe space. So yes, this lives on YouTube. Yes, this will be out in the public. But I really want to encourage you to feel like you're a part of inside of a container, a safe container for a deep and vulnerable and healing conversation with other Black women. I have a list of questions, but I'm going to prioritize whatever questions you have. So throw them in the chat. I'm going to constantly be looking here on my laptop at them. And so what I'm going to do now is pass it over to the ladies so they can introduce themselves, and then we'll launch in. So Dr. Yvonne, as our matriarch, would you mind introducing yourself to those who are here?
Well, I'm not sure what you would like me to say. My name is Dr. Yvonne Smith, but I do want to say we had talked about changes in names, and
Yes.
my family has called me Carol most of my life. My name is Carol Yvonne. And when my husband retired in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we transferred our lives to North Carolina, Holly talked about the vibrations, different times in your lives when a name doesn't fit any longer. So my name, I went to my middle name, Yvonne, because it was just kind of where I was. And so when I introduced it, it was a good time. No one knew me in North Carolina, so I just introduced myself as Yvonne. So now everyone here, from a professional basis, knows me as Dr. Yvonne Smith. But for short, most people just call me Dr. Yvonne, and that's the handle that I have held on to. I reside in the Pinehurst, North Carolina area. It's beautiful, and then we moved here because of the weather. And I should mention, I've been in private practice for, I've been practicing for about 59 years. I've been in private practice maybe for about 40 years, and self-employed and enjoying every moment of it.
Thank you, Dr. Yvonne. Piper, you want to go next?
Sure. So if we're going to stay on the name bandwagon, obviously it says Piper, but I think you heard my mother refer to me as Holly, and Holly is my given name, Holly Yvonne. My mother and I share the same middle name. And I did speak about frequency. And the reason why I ended up changing my name to Piper is because at a time in my life, the frequency of Holly didn't resonate anymore. And this was the name that sort of chose me. So this is the name that I started using professionally at a time in my life where it made sense to do that as well. And I stated when we first got on that I feel another name change coming as we've moved to Costa Rica, and things are shifting again. So we'll see. But right now, I am a retired hair and makeup artist, and I am allowing Costa Rica to now teach me how to live.
Ashanti, you're up.
All right. So my name is Ashanti, and continuing with the names, my family calls me Samar, which is my middle name. I answer to both, and I love both names, so I'm very receptive to both names. I have been a lifelong gymnast. I grew up doing gymnastics, and I continue coaching and doing it into adulthood. I'm very thankful for the person that I am, and also the career choice that I chose. I'm a sports medicine professional, and I currently work in high school as an athletic trainer. And
Amazing. So the way that I wanted to launch this conversation was to ask you, because I interviewed you each separately, what was some of the things or one thing that you learned about each other that you didn't know before you heard the episode?
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
The first thing, what I didn't know was that story about my grandmother. And when she had reached the end point of her marriage to my grandfather, and how she sat her daughters down and did the water dripping in the cup. It was brilliant, which tracks for her. But I'd never heard that story before. And so that was really interesting. Yeah.
And I call Dr. Yvonne Uppy. That's my and I did not know the reason that you went back for your second PhD.
Wow.
And I actually remember when you were in school getting your second PhD. I remember telling my classmates that my grandmother was in school and that she was a brain doctor. They were like, dude, did you look at people's brains? And I was like, no, but she's a brain doctor and she's really smart and she's in school again. So I did not know the context.
Dr. Yvonne, before you go, I just want to give some context around that, and maybe you can help me with that. For anyone who hasn't listened to the podcast, Dr. Yvonne has 2 PhDs, which sounds insane because it's so hard to even get one. And Dr. Yvonne told a really powerful story about how racism and sexism was the reason why she got her second PhD. So Dr. Yvonne, I don't know if you want to talk about that story, or even respond to Ashanti just finding that. And I have a question. Why did you never tell your family? Was it never top of mind to tell them why you got that second PhD? Or is it something that you kept to yourself, the reason?
No, I thought I was broadcasting it all the time. So I try not to talk too much about self. And we lived the experience. I didn't know how much Holly was grown. The grandchildren were born. My husband and I lived that experience. We were in Milwaukee. And so I wasn't aware that I had not shared the reason with the family out, when you're so busy moving towards the goal. And when I finished the second doctorate, we remained in Milwaukee that last year that my husband was working. And I had to do the postdoctorate internship, and I had to get training for how I was going to set up my private practice when I moved to North Carolina. So, I just charged forward, got it done, and then I had to do the internship, and then I had to move, and then I had to open a new practice. So I think the storytelling got lost in the process of living and redirecting our lives across country to another state.
I think that's such an important point, because I think for a lot of Black women, and oftentimes we're in survival mode, and because we're so capable and competent, a lot of people don't realize how hard what we're going through is. We make it look easy, and we're so busy trying to cross the finish line, get to the other space, that that part of the story gets lost. And when I listen to how people talk about Black women in society, it's almost like we're invincible. They're so inconsiderate to our feelings. Absolutely. Because they think we're invincible, but really we're just in survival mode.
And I think the reason I felt that I was telling this story so often is because my family never came to me and said, well, why are you in school again? Everybody was just supportive. But it was white males and people out in the professional world, primarily white, who were like, why do you have 2 PhDs? I mean, it was like an accusation. And they just couldn't understand it. I invited a couple to our home, a white couple. And he looked at me the entire evening. We invited him into our home here. And he was just staring at me. And I was in the kitchen. We were getting ready to sit down to eat. And I had a dinner party. And I said, you just keep staring at me. Is anything wrong? His comment, and I quote, I just don't understand who you are and how you got here. It baffled me. And he was I said, at least I appreciate your honesty in asking the question. So I answered the question a lot of times, but it was always from outside the family when people couldn't understand why I did what I did.
Yes. The next question I want to ask is similar.
I do want to comment on the one question of what we learned from the podcast.
Oh, yes, please.
I learned that Ashanti loves this library. I did not know that.
And she wants
one in her house. I'm going to pack all the books and give them to you.
I love that. My next question is similar, but it's really based on what you said, Dr. Yvonne, when you emailed me after you heard the episode. You said that you were processing new understandings of yourself, like seeing yourself through my gaze opened up new possibilities for what your journey looked like. And so I'd love to hear from the three of you what you learned about yourself, because in some ways I had to take some level of liberty. You told me your stories and then I had to figure out a cohesive story. And so I was really worried that I was not misrepresenting your experience, but did any way that I presented your story spark something in you, a different understanding of self?
I don't know. I can't say for myself if it sparked a different understanding of self, but what it did help me understand is just how interwoven our stories were. And I will say, well, that's not true. What I learned about myself is just how interwoven and interconnected we were. I think I viewed my mom's life, my life, and then my daughter's life as sort of these three separate things. And intellectually, I understood that there had to be weaving because that's what happens. But to hear us all speak at different times and then to have you weave that together into something cohesive, and I'm like, yeah, that is us, and that does make sense. And a lot of things then about choices that I've made and how I behave tracks, right? When I can see a through thread of that that wasn't necessarily accessible prior to hearing our stories told and then woven together. If that makes sense.
It completely makes sense.
That's how I felt too. I think subconsciously I always felt like there was, that thread intertwining, but it wasn't until hearing it back that I was like, wow, yes, our stories are really intertwined in a lot of ways that I hadn't even realized, but they're also different but similar at the same time. And I can see, how even starting from Mabel, things have been tracked all the way through.
Yeah.
And I think that I have begun to reflect on cohesiveness because of the chapter in my life where I am, having lost my husband, and in a time of reflection and making sense of you're living this life, you've lived this life, and what does that all mean? And when I started with the story of Mabel, it's very overwhelming for me because Mabel was my mother's mother, and now my baby girl, Robin, has named her baby Mabel. And that complete is her middle name. But that complete circle there means a lot to me. And so I see us in a little cohesive thing here, really affecting each other's lives. I have a huge picture of my grandmother. She's a beautiful woman, about this big. And I gave a copy to Robin and it's at home. So her name, the grandbaby's name is Lena Mabel. So it starts with Mabel and we circle back to Mabel and we've got now, 4 generations. So it's a great thing.
I love that. One of the questions I wanted to ask was there anything in your story that I didn't include? Because there were a lot of things that I had to leave on the cutting room floor that I thought was really important. And is there anything you want to share with the audience that maybe didn't make it into the episode? And I actually have one that I thought of when I was writing these questions. Can I throw it out there while you all think of your answer? So Ashanti, you told this beautiful story about how your mom, as you've gotten older, has really pushed you to be more independent. And one of the ways she does that is she might not pick up the call every time you call her to ask a question because she wants you to decide on your own. And you said this beautiful quote about women don't teach their daughters how to live without them. Your mom didn't get to hear that story. Do you mind me sharing it now so that we all can hear that?
Yeah, you can share it.
Wait, I want you to reshare it because you shared it so beautifully in the interview about how you're like learning independence because your mom doesn't always.
Yes. So, it's those memes and everything that you see, and it's like calling my mom and she's not picking up. Like, what are you doing besides not being available for my calls? But the quote that I saw was, my mom has taught me how to do everything except how to live without her. And even as I say that, I feel like in a way you have, because sometimes I'll go to call you to ask you something and you don't pick up, but I know what you're going to say anyway. And so, yeah, that's, really been a learning thing for me to trust my own intuition, and to know that you're still there. You're still there, even if I'm not physically talking to you. You are still, like the way our stories are interwoven. You're interwoven into my brain in this way. And going off of that, you just told me not to substitute your judgment for my own, and that's something that I always hear when I go to ask for advice or your thoughts, and I don't hear from you. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is me, a chance for me to not substitute your judgment for mine. So
How
I
does that
think
make
that's
you feel? Yeah, that's exactly what you shared. I wish I had put it in the episode. Piper, how does that make you share? Because one of the things I super admire about you is that you've created this new act. You moved to Costa Rica to create a new act, like I want to say a third act, a fourth act, a fifth act for you and your husband. And then you've left your 4 children in the States. And so and I don't mean to say that I'm like you've abandoned them, but you've centered yourself in this phase in your life. And so can you talk about how that feels for you and hearing Ashanti say that?
Yeah, it's true. She was the type, we were very different children. My daughter was a lot like my mother when my mother would describe herself as a child, and more compliant and really looking to their mother to guide them. And I had a different relationship with my mother in that way. I think my mom was a great mom. I tell people all the time I had great parents, but I always wanted to kind of do things differently or on my own. And so when I had a daughter who was like, what are you doing? And she wanted to please me. And I knew that if I knew I could shape her and mold her, because she was looking, she was willing for that. And I didn't want to do that because my mother allowed me to be my own person, even when it didn't make sense, even when she didn't understand. She just allowed me to be. And so I had a daughter who was looking to be shaped and molded, and I didn't want to do that. So I made a concerted effort to train her. Well, I don't like to use the word train, but to encourage her to be her own person, think for herself. And so even when she was small and she would come and ask me things, and I would turn it around and encourage her to come up with answers for herself. Yeah. So I feel great about that. And I'm glad to hear that she's starting to trust herself more, because what I know is that we can't thrive and live authentically and fully into ourselves if we don't trust ourselves. We just can't. And what was right for our mothers might not be right for us in that moment, right? And so I'm a different person and she's a different person. My mother is a different person, and we come and belong to each other, but we aren't the same, and I want to leave room for that.
I think what I loved about the episode is I could see generation to generation how you all had evolved, how you might have encountered a similar problem, but you answered it differently.
Mhm.
And you answered it differently because you were starting from the point where the person before you had left off, which I think is really, really powerful. That it's very easy, especially as children, and I mean that across all ages, to think that you're smarter than your parents, when in reality you're just starting from where they left off. Like you wouldn't be where you were in the road unless they
Right.
hadn't gotten you there. It's just a continuation, and so your gains are their gains too.
Right.
One of the things one can learn in life is, we talk about parenting being one of the most important jobs in our lives that we have. And parenting was wonderful. It was challenging. It was tough. Sometimes it was fun. It was all of those things. But I can tell you, when I look at my daughter, Piper, and I see what a fantastic mother she is, I feel like maybe I did okay as a parent, because my parenting is reflected in what kind of person she turns out to be. And then I see her turning out to be this incredible woman who has now produced another incredible woman. It's a wonderful thing. I feel very blessed.
Yeah, that's powerful. I was going to ask another question, but Can you speak a little bit to how you think it's different to be a Black mother raising Black daughters than any other type of demographic? What unique sensitivities you have to be aware of, and things you have, the specific things you have to pour as a Black woman into another Black woman living in the U.S.?
Can I answer that?
Please.
The two things that pop into mind are hair and body. I think those are two things that played very important in my life. They played out in my daughter's life. And I think as Black women and feeling good about our hair, and that was something I didn't always like my hair. I had challenges about all kinds of things. And so when I had my daughter, I was very conscientious about not giving her a relaxer, about working with her natural texture and having her love her hair. You know, my mom comes from a generation, and then I was born into that, where we were still deep into respectability politics and deep into conforming and relaxing and doing things to our hair to manipulate it to be able to assimilate. And I get it, because there's a safety component there. And at that time, it was sort of required so we could get jobs and all of that kind of stuff. But that has shifted. And so when I had my daughter, I wanted her to know her natural texture, and I wanted her to live and celebrate that and be excited about it. And as a result, she has always loved her hair. And I think that's imperative, because you're going to be met over and over again with people who are going to challenge that or say things about your hair or not understanding it and all kinds of things. And you need to feel good about that. And, you know, there's so much, everything about us is politicized. And so you could try to get a job, and if you're the braids or whatever, there can be comments about that. And I think I mentioned in the original recording about how even I had some not so good moments when I would reflect on Black women's hair out in public and things like that. So it's important that Black women pour into themselves. It's important that we pour into our daughters so that they know that they are beautiful and gorgeous, because if we don't tell them, nobody else is. You know what I'm saying? And then our bodies, we are built the way that we're built. I'm not. I don't know what happened, but but my daughter is super curvy. You know, we've got these gorgeous bodies. And again, they're politicized, they're demonized, they're criticized. And it's imperative that we I hate to use the word armor, but that we continue to pour into them how beautiful and how perfect, and that their bodies, what is her name? Sonia Ray Taylor, her book, the body is not an apology. And it's that, and to be able to believe that and to live into that fully, whatever your body looks like.
I just want to add that that tension you had about you and Dr. Yvonne growing up with a different tension around your hair and maybe even your body than Ashanti, some of that is generational, right? Like, we have to be so grateful for millennial and Gen Zers to be so embodied and so not looking for approval in ways that, like, Gen Xers and Boomers, we didn't have that privilege. That was not the conversation in the zeitgeist. And maybe it's because there was no social media. So we were only able to see portrayals that were decided by the media mogul and not independently. So I think it's just so beautiful to watch younger generations be so unapologetically themselves in ways that we just didn't have the language for.
I agree. And all the models were, even if they were Black women, they looked, you know, they tried to get them as close to looking like white women as possible. So you were still trying to strive for this aesthetic that you may or may not fall into.
I'd like to say that Holly made Piper made the comment about her mother's generation who straightened their hair for assimilation. But that was not my story. My story is I was 12 years old and my mother turned over the care of my body to myself. And she took me in the bathroom and she said, from this day forward, every day of your life, you're going to do 3 things to your face twice a day for you to be able to take care of your face and be healthy. And then you want to take care of your hair. And my hair, and she told me at that point that she had found a lady right across from the backyard where we were on 28th Street in Indianapolis, that there were new products out that made it easy for me to care for my hair. So I was introduced at age 12, not because I asked, not because I was trying to assimilate, but because of ease of care. But I can tell you that once I started getting a straightener at age 12, I never went backwards. I tried to go natural several times and I was not able to. But mine started at a very early age because of ease of care.
Do you
And I
know
remember
why
those
she did
days.
that at 12?
Huh? I'm sorry.
Do you know why she did that at 12? Was she
I
was
think
really
because
busy?
I was taking care of myself, and it was easy for me to care for my hair with a relaxer. It was easy. You just wash it, and it was a very ease of care. I have no recollection of taking care of my natural hair. I don't even have a recollection of that. I don't think I ever did it until I got till she gave me my first straightener when I was 12 years old.
I stand corrected.
We're learning about each other in real time. But I think that's what's the beauty of this episode, is that you think because you grew up with people in the same home that you know them, that you know all sides of them. And I think what was so powerful about the episode is I realized how little I knew about my mother, because especially as a child, you project so much, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't even think, let me ask the question about who they are and how they got there or why they do it. They're just our mom, right? And so what I loved about the episode is it really encouraged me and a lot of my friends to go back and revisit conversations that we never thought to have before. So I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
I think to answer your question, I wanted to make one other point.
Please.
Piper mentioned hair and body. The other thing that I noticed was something in regards to, I always used to listen to the lady on TV that talked about, evidently you didn't have a Black mama if you did ABCXYZ. And so I was just at the packing store today, packing off our 3-generational wedding gown to Ashanti. And there was
Ashanti's engaged, y'all. Ashanti's engaged. Let's do a praise dance. A praise dance. A praise dance. Yeah.
And the lady, and I had mentioned, I told her it was a wedding gown and it was being shifted off, and it's 3-generational. And so she was saying, she was wanting to know what I did, and she was talking about family. And she said, when I came up as a family, my comment was, it appears now that children are raising their parents. Children are running, children are running the homes. And so she said, she said, when I was a kid coming up, she said, when I was 14, my dad told me that I could come and go as I wanted. I could, but if he ever picked me up from jail, he was never going to let me leave again. So she had no rules, no boundaries, no nothing. And then she proceeded to tell me all while she's packing this box, because it took her a long time, let me tell you, to pack it, cut it down, and fix it. And she went into detail about, at 14, the things she was doing. And so I just reflect so often as watching the differences, some real cultural differences, and how we as Black women attempt to raise our children. Generally speaking, there are always variations, but real cultural differences between the white general culture and how we actually do things. I know Samar wasn't out running around at 14. That much I know for a fact.
Don't act a fool.
Yeah, but also to your point, our stories are so intersectional, right? Because some of that is class, right? Like if you have a single mom who's working all the time, then there are Black kids who are out on the street by themselves. And what I also loved in the episode is your scaffolding. Like Dr. Yvonne, you work so hard to get the family that you were born into and then the family you created into a stable financial place so that they would have all the opportunities in the world. And that's such a privilege and an honor. And not everybody gets the opportunity to elevate their family financially and the security that comes with that, right? Because I do know some Black families where the kids are launched, but it's because the mom is struggling to provide. And I really admired about your story, Dr. Yvonne, is like how committed from the age of 12 you were for a better life. Like it's insane that at 12 you clocked that and was like, I'm going to make this happen. Where do you think that came from?
I don't know. I look back on my life and I try to think of what are the things, the variables that help shape me, because I have some very finite conceptualizations of things. One is not smoking cigarettes. I mean, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment, but I was raised in church. I mean, from the time I was little, you just go to church every day. I was baptized when I was 6. And I remember sitting in church and I remember being feeling that this body that God gave me was a temple. I was small. I remember saying that to myself. And so when I would see people smoking, I was before 12, I was 6 when I was baptized, is I'm wondering if that stuff going in is really good for them. Or I'd see people drinking and over drinking. My father was a drinker. I mean, my father was an alcoholic, actually, a functional alcoholic. And I always wondered about, how these things going into your body were affecting you. And so I think my religious background helped to create some of my more strict ideations about life and about how to take care of your body, but also some rules around morality and things of that nature. I was really impacted by those things, I think.
Wow. Powerful. I want to get back to Ashanti being engaged, because one of the questions, those of you who are watching might not know, but I had a listening party for the first episode of the podcast. 20 beautiful women came to my apartment. And one of the biggest questions that was asked at the end of that was, we wanted to know more about their partners. We wanted to know how their partners played a role in who they are, who they are together, who they were separately, how that shaped that. And so I think it's also really powerful, because in my own family, a majority of women aren't married, and all three of you are partnered young, right? Partnered long term. And so how do you think that shaped your family dynamic and how you show up as Black women?
Well, Mom, you want to start?
It's interesting. One of the things that it set a pattern for sure. And I have to say that Mabel was married 7 times. And most of them died. So my husband used to say, I'm going to be really nice to you because I think your grandmother was a Black widow. I think she was killing off all those husbands, and I'm going to be good so you don't kill me off. And so, and my mother was divorced. So my sister was divorced. My brother was divorced. And so in my family, there was a lack of longevity in marriages that I saw. My grandmother's sisters, I think, all married a couple of times. So there was not longevity. I remember thinking, again, I'm in church, I'm going to church every Sunday, and you're getting all these ideologies about life and morality. And I said, what kind of guy do I want? And I made up in my mind when I was really young, about the kind of characters that I wanted in a person that I was going to partner with. And again, my father was the sweetest guy you ever wanted to see. He was brilliant. He probably could have been a research scientist. But he drank and he went to work. And so I said, well, I know I want a guy that doesn't drink, and I knew I was going to college, so I probably should have a guy that goes to college. And I want a guy who's really nice and who's kind to me and who isn't mean. And so I came up with all this long list of things in my brain. I never wrote it down. And then I wanted him to be handsome. And then I laid eyes on my husband at age 14, and that was it. Okay. I saw him walk through the cafeteria and my life changed. It was never the same after that. And interestingly enough, he turned out to be, God was good to me. He was the kind of person, there are very few people that you meet on earth like him. If you didn't like him, there was something wrong with you. Now, there are a lot of people running around who didn't like me. He thinks she's got a PhD. She walks with her head up there. Most women didn't like me, and a lot of guys didn't because I threatened them. So I was used to not being liked. But my husband was a different thing. Everybody liked him. And so I was blessed to have been able to find a mate. And I was really thrilled when Holly married into a family where his parents had longevity with marriage as well. So that's my story. I picked early and I was blessed.
It's a weird thing. What can I say? I married my oldest childhood friend. It's her cousin. And we were both only children at the time. Well, then Robin was born, but I was 12. And so I'd gone on this trip with her and I met her cousin. We did a trip on the train and came into Maryland. And we stayed at her cousin's house. And so there was her cousin. And I was like, he's cute or whatever. He's skinny and whatnot. And we just kind of became friends. And then some years later, we just kind of stayed connected and stayed in this really loose friendship, but there wasn't anything happening. And then when I was in college, we hadn't seen each other in a very long time. And I came to the DC area to attend my cousin's college graduation. And I was not 12, 13 anymore. I was now 18, 19, you know. And he saw me and he was like, oh, she grew up, because there's a 3-year age difference. So when he met me, I was like 13 and he was 17 and he wasn't, you know. So, yeah. He just, yeah.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
I just, you know, we hit it off and it made sense. And we were young and I was around the same age that my mother was when she married my father. And I got married at 21 and a half and, you know, had a child right away. And my mom didn't have me that fast, but married really young at 22. And my daughter, you'll hear her story. She partnered early at 20 and now she's 28, no, 22.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm sorry. She was 22. So there she got in this long-term relationship. So it just made sense, you know, and it is something that I wouldn't recommend. Like, you know,
really?
we were, no,
Why?
because you don't know who you are at 22. And if you can't grow together and allow each other space to grow, you're not going to make it. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who came to our wedding who actually thought we were going to last 33 years because of how quickly we got together, how quickly we got married, and how quickly we had children. And so people were just like, yeah, we're going to go. It's a good time. And they make a beautiful couple, but there's no way this is going to last. And we grew up together. And so the reason why we were really good friends, we genuinely like each other and we allowed each other to be who we're going to be. And I will say this, he allowed me more so because I think I picked with him more and tried to manipulate him more, but he never did that to me. Whatever iteration, however I showed up, pregnant, not pregnant, we have 4 kids, every bit of crazy that I've been, he's been here for it. And he has never required me to be anything other than who I am. And who I am has changed often and frequently. And he has loved every version of me wholly and fully.
Did he change a lot too, Piper?
100%. Yeah, had to have, or else we wouldn't. I mean, in fact, after our last child graduated, we had a big come to Jesus moment in our relationship. And we were like, we don't have to do this anymore. We have raised them. We have loved them. And so we took a year and we did deep counseling to decide, do we want to stay together? Because we had considered, we could consciously uncouple. There wasn't anything wrong per se, but also what do we want to do next? And does it include each other? And then we had to rearrange everything and then sort of dismantle the relationship the way that it had looked when we were raising our children. And this move to Costa Rica is part of us reestablishing and rebuilding a relationship that makes sense for where we are now. Yeah.
I love that.
And it's interesting that you question, I'm gonna let Ashanti answer that, but I just want to interject here before she answers, because her fiance is getting ready to be, what, 29 years old? How old is
No,
he?
he just turned 30.
Okay, Francis Cress Welsing. I remember I used to teach in my psychology class. Francis Cress Welsing used to talk about Black men. Let's talk about Black men. Probably all men, but she talked about Black men. Shouldn't get married before age 30. And I always would teach that in class. And my husband said, you should have told me that when I got married. You know, but what Holly says makes sense, and that is the reason. I mean, for not only, I mean, it makes sense for women as well, but we mature basically sooner than men. But the average man is at the right age at 30. So I just wanted to interject that. Go ahead, Ashanti.
Love it.
It's funny because there are ways that well, I see a lot of my fiance in my dad and my grandfather. And so
my husband and my dad.
Yeah. And so it's always interesting to me because I'll note that. Wow, that's very like my dad of him. So, but my fiance and I actually met because I graduated undergrad in 2020 during the pandemic. And I was sent home on an early spring break. And so I'm all excited because I'm coming home early for spring break. And my cousin who lives in Baltimore asked me to come visit him. And I went to visit him, and he was roommates with my now fiance. And he said I was sitting at his kitchen table. My God, he came downstairs. He was like, "Who is this sitting at my table?" I had been there for hours, and he had been upstairs, but he didn't know until he came downstairs, and we hit it off that night. And from the very beginning, I think because I've had such excellent relationships for me, and I'd never been in a serious relationship before, and I think it's because I knew that they weren't shit and that it wasn't going to go anywhere. You know, I entertained ideas and dated here and there, but I always knew it probably wasn't really going to go anywhere. But I knew from the beginning that it was different, and we just set such a strong foundation. My mom was talking about how she feels like she's tried to manipulate my dad in some ways to let her be her, and I feel like that's the same for me and my dad. And I catch myself, I'm like, I love you just as you are. So why am I trying to why am I trying to have you do anything differently? And he's always been, we've been together now over 6 years. And I was just coming out of undergrad when we met. I was a young professional. I've gone through all different seasons in my professional career in just these 6 years. And a constant solid rock for me. And we just set that foundation at the beginning of how we wanted to show up for each other, what we wanted our relationship to look like. And we consciously waited a long time to get engaged. There was a long time, I say, but we were conscious about it. And we had said very early on, we called it the boat, our relationship boat. It was like, we're in the boat and we're rowing it together. Neither one of us is jumping out of the boat. We're in this boat. And so, yes, I really think that the relationships that I've had modeled for me, and I saw unhealthy relationships too as a child. I always felt very in tune with the adult relationships in my lives. Like I paid close attention to how the married couples with each other and interacted with each other, because I noticed that my parents were best friends, and my grandparents. I could see that lacking in other relationships, and so I knew what I wanted my relationship to look like going into it. And I told my fiance, I was like, this is what it is. This is what we're doing, and we're either in it together or we're not. And we decided we're in it.
That's beautiful.
And let me add that my dad, like my mom said, he was just a wonderful person, and he was a wonderful man, and he loved my mom well. He loved me and my sister well. And so I felt cared for and loved and supported by men. And a lot of women don't have that, but I did. By the men in my lives, I felt in my environment with my dad, I felt safe and I felt loved and I felt protected. And so the men that I chose overwhelmingly were like that. Not everybody was necessarily marriage material, but majority of the men that I dated and saw were decent enough guys. We were young, so it's whatever. So it doesn't. Yeah. So my husband it just made sense because that's what I had as an example. And he comes from, his parents have been married for a long time. And so I saw that relationship. I've known him for a long time. But it is because my father loved me and my mom and his sister, right? And my cousins who were girls. He loved us all so beautifully that I was like, I want a guy who's going to love me like that.
And going off of that, I should say I'm a daddy's girl, princess, always have been. So I wasn't going to settle for anything less.
What I think is so powerful is, I intentionally set out to tell the story of Black women. And I remember even at the listening party when someone said, I want to know about the men. And I was like, no, we're not going to be male-centered. We're going to focus on the women in this podcast. They are enough. But I realized after the party, I got to process and I was like, no, they're right. And I think what the three of you just so beautifully exemplified is that even as Black women, how important the men in your life were in shaping who you are as a Black woman. And I don't think we get enough examples of that nowadays. This idea of Black love, right? We see it on TV, but that's a fictional recapping of it. And so I thank you for sharing your romantic stories with us and inspiring us and showing what that can look like multi-generationally, right? It's not only about you being lonely and finding a partner. It's about finding the father for your daughter and setting the standard of men for her life, which is so important.
It's amazing
Across the board.
because I think one of the unique things about my husband is that not only did he support me through one doctorate degree, he supported me through two. The average man would not have put up with all that nonsense.
100%.
And my mother, I mean, from the very beginning, I had my undergraduate degree. My husband was still in the military. And so when we got married, he was working and going to school part-time. So when he finished his undergraduate degree, I started working on my master's, and my mother said, why are you getting a master's degree? You and your husband are equally yoked now. You have an undergraduate, he has an undergraduate. You should be happy where you are. I said, no, I've got to get my master's. Every degree that I got, she would sit me down almost in tears and say, you're going to run your husband away. You're getting too much education, and that's going to threaten him. It just so happened I had the right man, because I can tell you that would have threatened a lot of men for sure, you know?
Yeah. Yes, I know this on a personal level. I already have a PhD and people are annoyed by it. I'm like, you're not paying for it. You're not there while I'm studying. Why do you care? Right, exactly.
Yeah. It's funny, Mom, as I hear you talking about Dad being there for you through yours were degrees, but mine were just different career changes. But still, it's like, I'm gonna get I worked in international education, and then I was like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom. And he was like, okay. And so I came home, and I was home with my kids for 10 years. And then after that, I was like, I'm gonna go back to school and I'm gonna get my cosmetology license. He was like, okay. And then I went back to school and did all that, and had already had my makeup license, but then got my hair license and was doing that for 10 years. And then I was like, I'm going to get a sexology degree. And he was like, okay. And then 2 years ago, I come back and now I'm a licensed sexologist. So and he, every time he was like, all right.
Yeah, that's powerful. Ashanti,
and I didn't even realize. Say again. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting. But is your fiance as flexible? Is that the key to a good Black man? Is that they're flexible to your changes and shifts?
Just let us be us and let us do whatever we want to do. And no, and I don't mean that in like us, like, you know what I mean? Be kind and be like, I love him and I try to be kind and generous and loving. I'm not walking all over him. I'm not abusing him. I'm not stepping over him. I'm doing my best not to take him for granted. But, protect Black women at all costs. Like, we don't have enough people out there looking out for us, checking for us, making sure that we're safe, making sure that we're loved and supported. We need that. And so we ask that the men allow us to do that, because when we thrive and we do well, they're going to thrive and do well also. That's right. We look at that when women and children, because where there are women, there are children.
Yes.
When we do well, everybody does well. Everybody benefits when we're thriving.
Yeah.
And I think they know that. Right? I would say Dad definitely knew that.
Absolutely.
I think Stan, my daughter's fiance, definitely knows that. My husband knows it. He doesn't want. He tries to be like,
He doesn't want to give us our credit.
He tries. He doesn't want to give me my. No, I'm kidding. He don't want to give me my flowers. No, that's not true. He's just his personality. He's just a little bit more reserved. But yeah, they know that. They know we make their lives better and fuller and richer.
Yeah, my fiance, he's definitely like I said, I've done a lot in my 6 years, only 6 years in my professional career. And I started off working at in traditional setting as an athletic trainer. Then I told him, I was like, I applied to a job in Germany. And he's like, well, you're gonna get it. So he never, for a minute, I was nervous through the whole interview process.
No.
All of it. It was a very quick turnaround. I wasn't working as an athletic trainer at that point. I was managing a gymnastics facility at the time and coaching. And I just scrolling on LinkedIn, and I came across this position as an athletic trainer in Germany, and he never once doubted that I would get it, and he never didn't ask me to stay, because he knew what that had been. And then I feel like getting back, I started working in the university setting. And it was like, I think I'm done there. I think I need to go somewhere else. And he has been right there through. I got my master's degree in that time. He was there through my that's the stress of working full time and also getting my master's degree. And so he was always right there supporting me, and he was right there with change and what I wanted to do, where I've been a little bit all over the place in terms of I want to start my own business, and I want, my life, our life to look like, and he's just along for the ride.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so all the single ladies on the live, please know the key to a good man is one who's flexible and two is not selfish. And when you all were talking, I was thinking about, this toxic males epidemic that we're in, the Andrew Tates, and like they're so rigid. Their definition of what a woman should be is not only myopic, but it's so rigid and it's so selfish. It's so centered around them and their needs. So I think it's really beautiful to hear you all talk about what made your men so great for you.
Be with a man who loves women, who likes
who actually likes women. I think I said to my husband years ago, I was like, men don't actually like women. Most men don't like women. And so there it is, and so I think the first thing is to actually get you a guy that actually likes women.
All right, so what's interesting, there's so many parallels with your story, but what's interesting is that you all are at inception points where you're launching into something new. So Dr. Yvonne, you're about to sell the home you built with your husband, and you're about to launch into what home means for you now, post his parting, which we're so sad about. Piper just moved to Costa Rica. She is trying to figure out what that means, what this means for her marriage, her life, her working, her not working. And Ashanti, you just got engaged, so you're about to begin your journey as a married woman. And so because of all of you are about to launch into a new identity, a new role, a new phase of your life, what do you hope for that time for yourself? Because I feel like I'm watching three lines running in parallel, but there's points where it just like overlaps. What is the next phase for the three of you? What are you looking forward to? What are you drawing from each other? What are you setting out on your own to do? Where are y'all at with that?
I'll start by saying, when my husband passed, it'll be 3 years this July.
I'm so sorry.
I felt like a pebble in a bowl, just rumbling around. I was in this huge 10,000 square foot house, rumbling around by myself. We were partnered, and I knew how to do things. But there's a lot regarding house and all of those things that he took care of for me. And so I was trying to figure out how to be okay by myself. And so I've gone through ups and downs. Should I sell the house? Should I not? This was our dream house. I sketched this house every.
Dr. Yvonne, I think we lost you. I think the internet went a little bit. Oh, there you are. You're back. You're back.
We're back. Okay, no. I hand drew this house, every room, every stitch, I drew the outline of it. I took it to an architect. This was our dream house. And my husband said, we're going to do this because this is what you want. And so it's our dream house. And so my goal was to always be here to pass it down through generations. He died and I felt like I needed to clench onto it. And then there was a period where I said, well, maybe I should sell it because it's a lot of responsibility for one person. I put it on the market. I've taken it off. I put it on the market a second time. I looked for other options of how to let the house pay for itself. And I will say, for anybody that's listening out there, they always tell you in real estate, location, location, location. And we made the huge error of building our house in Foxstar Village instead of Pinehurst. And so our house is located the wrong place. It wouldn't work for vacation rental by owners. It didn't work for corporate rental by owners. We tried to do furnished finders for rentals. It's too remote and it's not working. But I can tell you, and so I had been in flux, but I haven't told Holly this, Piper this, watching she and her husband divest their lives, their house, their clothes, their pictures, all the beautiful stuff she had. getting rid of it, getting rid of it, getting rid of the cars, and marching off into the sunlight has had a profound effect upon me. And because of that, I'm able to say, I can leave here. It's okay. That I'll be okay. I don't feel like I have to hang on because she has shown me another way. I'm sorry.
No, it's beautiful. Thank you.
And so I thank you, Holly, for opening the gates. I mean, it's a huge world out there.
Yeah.
And so now I can comfortably pack up what I need for a 3-bedroom apartment. My goal is to move into a 3-bedroom apartment for a year and see how the private practice goes. What I can't fit into a 3-bedroom apartment has to be given away. I'm finding out what grandchildren want what. And the rest of it, I'm gonna have auctioned off. That includes the 2 things I was worried about: my 6'5" ginger jars that sit up at a pedestal like in a museum, and my baby grand piano. They can all go. And so now I'm able to approach this next stage of my life because my daughter has given me the vision and the courage to be able to do that.
What a beautiful example of how we learn up and down, right? It's not only children learning from parents, but parents learning from children. That's so beautiful. Barbara, what you got to say about all that?
Not much. This, because this whole journey to Costa Rica has been spirit led for me. This isn't something that I came up with on my own. I was in a medicine journey. And I came out of the journey or somewhere either in the journey or right after the journey. It was like, you're supposed to move to Costa Rica. And I was like, why? But I trusted it. It just felt like the thing to do. And I was in such a place where I was really starting to follow my guidance in a way that I didn't understand was being required of me. And so it was like these little breadcrumbs, and I just followed it and followed it and followed it. And here I am 5 years later here. But it was a process of over the course of the last 5 years of slowly getting myself ready to be rid of everything. And my mom's not exaggerating. We moved here, 2 suitcases. We each checked a bag. We each had a backpack, and we each had a carry-on. That is all we own now. Everything else was given or sold. So I don't know, Mikaila, to answer your question, I am still following the guidance. I'm still following the call. What I can say is that Costa Rica is teaching me how to live.
Yes.
I am in a different culture. I'm in a different country. It's a new language. At the age that I am, I'm very excited because nothing's going to atrophy. You know, I got to stay strong physically. The landscape is very, it's just a very dynamic country. So I need to be strong physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically to navigate these next stages. I'm very excited about that. And also Spirit's keeping things close to the chest, and I'm only being shown next steps and not these long views. But I think that's also part of me learning to trust myself, part of the guidance and part of the learning, because it's completely different. So they're titrating me. I'm being titrated into this new life, and I'm just like, okay, what's next? And I'm terrified all the time, but it's exhilarating. So yeah. And I miss my family incredibly, and so I'm also navigating. So there's a lot of grief here. You know, I'm still in because when my dad passed, I was in the process of getting ready for this move, and we had started planning, and I was in school for my certification, for my Tantra sexology certification. And I didn't have time to mourn properly, and we had a lot of losses over the course of a few years. So now that I'm here and I have more time, a lot of grief is surfacing about a lot of the loss, the deaths, the transition, the jobs, you know, retiring from hair and makeup, giving away all of my hair and makeup stuff. I kept a very small thing. My daughter has a girlfriend, a dear friend who does hair and makeup, gave her all my things. So it's but there's grief in all of this, and I'm just now sort of tapping into that. So there's and it's been having its way with me, but I feel so fortunate to be sort of held by the jungle and the elements. And in my training, it's very much in alignment with where I am and the practices that I have to sort of sustain me and support me. So I'm just leaning into that. Yeah, as best I can.
I think because I know you personally, if anyone could weather this and come out stronger and better, it's you. And I think we're all very excited to see what's on the other side.
Please come visit.
I will. Believe me, I will. I think that a theme I saw through the three of you, and Ashanti, I'm coming to you because I want to hear what's next for you as well. But I saw, when I looked at your three stories, I saw breaking down from this perfectionism and planning. Like all three of you are so high achieving, and that showed up so much in the beginning of all of your lives. And when I got to meet the three of you, you were all kind of unpacking that and slowing down and requiring less from yourself. And Piper, I think this is, part of that. And I'm really excited to see who you are when you don't feel like you need to know all the things and be all the things and be perfect.
Thank you. Me too. Exciting. Yeah, me too. Thank you.
I think Ashanti really exemplifies that in her story, the letting go of this anxiety to be perfect. Ashanti, what's next for you and how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, so I feel like kind of going off of what my grandmother was saying, seeing my mom, my parents go to Costa Rica, I for a long time felt a lot of anxiety just about the unknown, about the future. My mom and I used to say that I would strangle my life, and that was very accurate. Like I was planning wanting it to be perfect, and everything was going to plan. I just had so much anxiety at all times. I could really be excited about what was coming next because I was anxious. And I'm a lot much less anxious than I used to be. In fact, I'm more excited about the unknown because I think about it. I'm like, did my mom know at 28 that she could retire to Costa Rica in her mid 50s? No, and so that makes me excited to know that I don't know what's in store, but I'm excited. I'm excited for our next chapter for us to just continue. My fiance and I both feel very strongly about our family and community, and we actually are about to have my cousin, who I mentioned earlier, and his wife and daughter moving in with us for all of us to help save money, just in community and lift each other up and family, and help us all jump to the next chapter of our lives. And so I just continue to try to be excited, be open, and know that the possibilities really are endless, that I have the power to manifest the life that I want to live. And so I sit comfortable in that, having seen my mom and grandmother do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I just want to let the audience know that we're going to wrap up soon. So if you have any questions, please do drop them in the chat because I want to make sure if anything is coming up for you. I've been posting all your words of affirmation. I don't know. Can you all see them? Because I'm new to live. Can you see the comments? Okay, I'll make sure that
I've seen some.
Okay, yeah, because they're really positive and reaffirming. Thank you, audience, for being so kind.
Thank you. Yeah, so sweet.
The question I want to ask is, to be honest, I have felt in meeting your family that you're one of the healthiest families I've ever encountered. You are light years healthier than my own family. And so I wanted your advice as a family with a high emotional intelligence. For those of us who are beginning these conversations with our matrilineal line, our mothers, our sisters, our aunts, what kind of questions? Because what's so interesting is you have such a healthy family, but yet in the living of every day, there were parts of yourself that you learned through this process. So now, having gone through this process, what advice do you have for other Black women who want to get to know their family, their female family, their female identifying family in a more fulfilling way?
Yeah. I would say, Mom, do you have something to say?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I would say, be courageous, have the courage to ask the hard questions, to have the hard conversations. I feel like a lot of Black women, for good reasons, we're armored up for a myriad of reasons, and it can sometimes feel insurmountable to get Black women to actually open up and to talk about how they're feeling. Like, girl, we don't have time for that. I remember when I was started menopause and I was like, what is happening? And my mother was like, I don't know. White women had issues with menopause. I don't know any Black women. We just are hot and we keep it moving. And I don't know what you need, you know. She's like, it just, you know, she's like, she didn't have the time to take and consider what it meant to go through menopause and all of that kind of stuff. And so I made more of a concerted effort to figure that out. But it's in that kind of thing where we're like, we don't have time. We got stuff we got to do. We have people we have to take care of. We've got all of these kinds of things. And that can be off-putting to younger people who want to get to know these women. But we want to be known.
Mm.
And I think everybody, right? Like, we want to be known, we want to be seen. And so I think it takes, somebody has to be courageous enough to speak that out. And then listen, instant grace for all parties involved, and a big dose of compassion, because you're going to hear stories, you're going to learn things that you know, that are you might not agree with, you might not understand. Right? Let them share the story, hear it, and then, you know, love them through it, meet them where they are and let them share, because we need more witnessing. And right, we need more people who can hear our stories and stand, because there's a lot with it. And sometimes when people don't have others hold their own pain, they can't hold the stories, right, and things of other people. And there's a lot of pain sometimes in our stories, in our histories. And the people are like, well, that makes me too uncomfortable. I don't want to know. So it's like, get comfortable being uncomfortable, and, you know, pull up a chair and bear witness to your heritage, bear witness to the women who have held you, to the women who have carried you, because none of us would be here if it weren't for Black women. So
That was beautiful. Thank you, Piper.
I think I would say, I'm going to take it from a psychological standpoint.
Great.
You look at families, and I come from a Black family. I was raised in a Black neighborhood, lived in a white neighborhood ever since I've been married. But there are unique things about the Black family that are endearing. And if you're approaching, like my granddaughter approaching, or if you're in the middle of a traumatic family, or you're in the middle of a traumatic relationship, or wherever you are, think of these words. As you begin to try to restructure your own life, or think of what works well for Black families, from a psychological standpoint, there has to be a foundation of faith and grace and belief. Nothing works without some kind of a foundation. You know, I don't know if you call him God. I don't know who it is or what, or nothing, but whoever created all of this, you know, there's some kind of a foundation there. I think that needs to be in place. And with that is the ability to recognize the individuality and to love people unconditionally. And so what I'm seeing now with so many families, you know, in different stages of their developmental lives, and not being able to do the unconditional love. The one tragic thing that I see are adult children mad at their parents who decide, I'm not speaking to them again, I'm leaving. It's breaking up of families, with that kind of inability to communicate and to be able to work things out and to hold that family unit together. Because I can tell you without a doubt that when you're on the other side of your life, in the place where I am, further down the line where you've left generations, the only thing in this life that matters is family. And how do you migrate through your life without the support of family? So loving and unconditional love, I think, is so very, very important, on top of a foundation of some kind of faith and grace, and just asking for the ability to be able to love and give and receive.
Yeah, thank you.
I just feel fortunate and blessed that I was born into a healthy family and I've had such great models and examples for me. I was having a hard time thinking of the advice I've give just because I feel like, honestly, the universe has given me a beautiful and healthy family and one that I've always felt safe in. But to echo my grandmother, the one thing that came to mind was approaching everything with love. Is just standing on love. That just has to be the foundation of it. I family, we love each other so deeply that that is at the center of everything. If there's a disagreement or a misunderstanding, we know that it wasn't malicious intent. There's no pettiness, no drama. We love each other, and that's the bottom line. And so it's always coming together on that common ground of we're not trying. We don't want to fight. We don't want to have major conflict that causes the family to divide. So it's how do we approach this with love and move forward with love? So love.
And no competition.
No competition. Yeah, there's never any of that. Yeah.
No competition.
Yes.
No competition.
I think what was so cool about doing this episode specifically, it reminded me of the importance of storytelling, especially, being of an Afro descendant person, and how we don't do that anymore, and how it's important to tell stories not from a place of conflict, which goes to what you all are saying about love. I interviewed you you were in your homes, you felt safe, you felt comfortable, you were comfortable being vulnerable, you were just sharing for sharing's sake. And I think sometimes when I have learned things about my family, it has been in duress. It has been in fight or flight. And so it was hard for me to show up loving, to receive the information and the truth of my family members.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to prioritize having these conversations when you're emotionally regulated, so that whatever comes up can be received. I mean, I was nervous when I did your episode because we were talking about things like sexual assault, and those things can be incredibly triggering. And I wasn't only worried about the audience, I was worried about you all and hearing each other talk about that in some capacity. But you all were able to hold it because you weren't telling that story from a place of duress. It was just part of your story. And so we were able to see how, in particular, your generational line had evolved and how you even respond to predatory behavior. Like, it was beautiful to see how each generation handled that differently and how you each supported each other differently. And that was really powerful. So I think having these conversations casually, comfortably, from a place of love with your loved ones is the biggest part of having any conversation like this.
Yes.
I think the last question I want to ask is, what do you want for the next generation of women in your family, the ones still to come? I was thinking the other day about, we always hear like we're the ones that our ancestors prayed for. And I was like, I'm the ancestor now. I'm the ancestor that's supposed to pray for those next generations. So I guess my question is, what do you pray for Ashanti's daughters or other girls coming up in your family that aren't quite here yet?
It's so interesting. To have cleared this line from the trauma. I knew in 2020 my call to this journey began in 2020 in earnest. I mean, I think it's always been up and coming, but in 2019, and then COVID hit, and then me and two other girlfriends started something and some scaffolding that really sort of catapulted me. And then with the murder of George Floyd, my body erupted in this thing all over, and spirit just started talking to me, and they were like, you will not have any more females born in this line until you heal yourself. And if you heal yourself, you will clear your generation 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. You don't have to do this work. You have choice. If you choose not to, no more women will be born because it stops with you. Choose, but red pill, blue pill, like you can do whatever you want. And so I was like, well, I want to be whole. So I'm in it for us all. And so I started my own healing journey. And so in that, I hope that then I'll know that if my daughter has a daughter, because Spirit was very clear with me, that I have done what I set out to do, which is to clear it enough so that she doesn't carry what we have carried.
Yeah. And what I love about that is Mabel, I don't think Mabel could even have imagined what you all have become.
Mm-mm.
Look about how much trauma was cleared from Mabel to Ashanti. It's insane.
Let me tell you something. Let me see if I can do this really succinctly, because it is 7 generations from the time that the first one got here. And I learned her name. The first ancestor she gave me, her name was Zoshi. She was obviously an African woman, and she got here, and she is the one who was raped by her enslaver and produced Almeida, who was the firstborn, who looked white bodied, and this ancestor could not parent her. And that was the beginning of the trauma that sort of started the separation from that. And then it came down to Almeida, to Mary, to Mabel, to Edwina, to my mother, to me, and now to Ashanti. And what I was able to do in my Tantra training is I was introduced to a lineage that was held by a Black woman named Naguma. And she was Dravidian, and she is African, and she was blickety black. That is what she is known for, is her distinction is how Black she actually was. And so I have come full circle even in that, and bringing my whole family full circle with that line, because it has tied me back. Coming to finding Naguma and this Tantra practice in this lineage, the Shangpao Kagyu lineage, has directly tied me back to my first ancestor who came here, who delivered Almeida, who then started our line. So it is done.
Amen.
It's beautiful.
Done. Yeah.
I hope that we're able to, I'm confident that we will continue to pass this on. If I have a daughter, that I'm so confident in our line, that because I think when I was younger, I used to be like, oh, I hope my daughter and I are as close as me and my mom are. And I used to, hope that we have that same connection, and I don't have those types of worries or thoughts anymore, just because I know the love that's in our line. And that is you.
And I am confident watching these 2 strong Black women in front of me as the future, and Ashanti being the beacon light for the future, that our family will continue to be strong and to move forward in love and unity.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for this beautiful conversation. It's been such a pleasure to share you with the world. I thank you for sharing yourself with me. It's been such an honor and a privilege. And I'm sure those who watch this video will continue to be inspired. Just another word to those who are listening, a new episode is coming out on Wednesday. Ashanti is in the 2nd episode, so we'll see another side of her story, different from episode 1. But I do hope you will check it out, and we'll continue to do these lives. I want to thank you for all of the reaffirming comments that were shared and for just being part of this. And this is my first live, y'all. We did it. And I'm so happy about it. It went so well. So thank you so much for doing it with me. I'm so grateful to you. And so grateful for all who watched. I hope you have a great Friday, a great rest of your weekend, and have those conversations with the women in your family. Learn their stories, contextualize them in ways that you never have, because it'll be such a benefit for you, as your story has been a benefit for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone have a great, great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.